Today, we talk to
Olivier Patey.
Where are you from?
I'm a French clarinetist. I'm born in Lille, in France, the north of France.
How did you come to the clarinet?
I started with music together with my little sister Sophie when we were 6 and she was 4.5 on the piano. And it was like an educational thing for us. When you are this age, you go to school and you do a bit sport and a bit of music. And that's how we came to music. And at the very beginning was fine, but after a few years, 2 years, I had no pleasure making music and playing the piano. It was not really my instrument. And we try to still get into the conservatoire in Lille, because before we had the private lessons, and so the theoretical exam went well, so we got into the solfège class, both of us, and my sister got into the piano class and I didn't. And at the time I said to my parents, look, I told you I don't like it, it's not for me, so I don't want to have anything to do with music anymore. Just leave me alone. And they say, but no, you enter the solfège class, so you will go and you still go to these private lessons for piano for 1 more year. That leaves you plenty of time to think about another instrument. And my parents, they are no musicians. My mother played a bit of piano when she was young, but that was it. And but they like to listen to classical music, so there was always the classical radio on at home or in the car or things like this. And I was used to listen to classical music and the whole spectrum of orchestra instruments, concerti. And I was always fascinated by the sound of the clarinet. I was really attracted to it. And there was a clarinet in the family somewhere, in a very deep in a cupboard, and when I say I'm gonna play the clarinet, so we found this instrument back, and as soon as I started, at the time I could start directly in the conservatoire in Lille because I was young enough, so everything was fine. The only question by the teacher is, do you have your definitive teeth? I said yes. At the time I was 9, and so he said, so we can start right away. And from the first lesson on, I completely fell in love, and I never left the instrument again.
What is never missing in your clarinet case?
I always have everything. Of course, my clarinet, because you can think here, but some people don't put the clarinet back in the case. They leave it like this on the side. Now I always clean it and put it back on the case like it's brand new out of the factory. Of course, the mouthpiece with the reed on the mouthpiece, because I think it's very important. The reed is a natural material, and it moves, and especially with the moisture, of course. And it needs to be one together with the mouthpiece. So I prefer that it moves and make one on the mouthpiece, then it moves apart, and then you take the next day and it doesn't fit anymore. So that's so this is never missing on my clarinet. So at least I have one mouthpiece, one reed, and my clarinet. And nowadays, what I don't miss, my earpod.
Any advice that someone gave you and changed your life?
Yeah, one that is now in my mind is that something that says in the end that we are all equal, and we all deserve to be there, and there's no better than other. When I was a young boy at school, I was around 12, I had some difficulties with my French teacher at school. Maybe it was not my strongest point, I was more into mathematics also, but French needed to be done, and I was not a bad student. But and she had kind of like had a hard teeth on me. It was difficult, and I always felt under pressure and not ignored, but pushed down always. And at some point, and I'm not the kind of guy who will complain, so I take it. But after a few months, when it goes on like this and like this, it's difficult, and I end up telling my parents, and my mother said, in the end, it's not so important, because she doesn't want to consider you or young boys. That's her mistake. In the end, you have to think that she has to go to the toilet and do it like every one of us. And so of course now you can translate it to better words, but in the end, we are all equal there. And think people who you might think they take too much the lead, or they look a bit down on you or anything like this. In the end, for basics, we're all the same. So all our voices are worth to be there, to be heard. And of course, don't. That's also in me. Don't speak if you don't have something interesting to say. But when you do, of course, you will be heard, and you have absolutely the right to be heard.
Who were your clarinet teachers?
So my first clarinet teacher was in Lille Conservatoire when I started. From the very beginning was Florian Cadoré, and he always has been teaching in the Conservatoire there in Lille. He was before clarinet solo in the orchestra from the Opéra de Lille at the time, but when I started, this orchestra has been erased from the map, unfortunately. So he was left with just his job as a clarinet teacher, and it was a blessing for me to start with him, because he's a good clarinetist, but first of all, he's a very good musician. He had kind of a father figure for me in the musical world, and he made me make music from the very first lesson we had together. Always, so he would have taught me maybe 3 notes the first lesson, and from then he told me, do something, do a tune for next week, and find anything. And that's how it started. So I already had a lot of joy with playing the clarinet, because I was making music. It was never asked from a technical aspect of it, but always from the very beginning, very musical. And then when we went on, every end of the lessons were with duets. So I played with him always, every lesson. So for me, it was always making music and sharing it from the very start. So I feel very lucky. So Florian, if you watch the video, thank you so much. And then later on, at the end of the conservatoire, Florian could go to a certain level, but the latest level, I entered the class of Claude Faucompré, who was a solo clarinetist at the Orchestre National de Lille, and a quite well-known clarinetist. He played everywhere, and especially he was very well-known in Japan. He was working for Yamaha at the time, and amazing clarinetist, really everything from his heart, extremely talented guy. So it has both sides. He was extremely inspiring musically, but when you would have any problems that he himself didn't experience, so you had no solution. So you had to keep up with the pace and find out your own solution. But musically was always so inspiring. And it's actually and still one of my best Mozart Clarinet Concerto interpretation recording there is. So if you can find it, Claude Faucompré with Orchestre National de Lille under Jean-Claude Casatsu. It's for me a fantastic version, so instinctive. so instinctive. Yeah. So after at this time, so I graduated from the conservatoire with at the médaille d'or when I was 16, and then it was already quite a surprise for me because normally you spend 2 years or 3 at least in this last level in the conservatoire in Lille. But for me, it was just 1 year, and I got the highest mention. So what to do next? So there was also an extra layer, niveau supérieur, which I joined. I was lucky to join, and at the same time, I was already in touch with Michel Arignon, who I got to know during a summer course. Yeah, when I was 16, in the summer, I was. Yeah, of course, Michel is an amazing guy, great guy, and was maybe for me the next step to go. And but I was still very young, so I needed to have a transition between there and hypothetically the conservatoire in Paris. And also I was still at school because I made normal school study, no musical, nothing, just normal, regular. And so I needed first to finish this. So I went on with this superior level in Lille, still with Faucon-Pré. So I had a chance to work more than just 1 year with him, but at least 2. We got along very well. Yeah, I think I had a position. Arignon was teaching, of course, in the Conservatoire Supérieur in Paris, but also in one of the arrondissement district conservatoire in Paris, and I had a position there in his class. So to get prepared to enter the conservatoire, that was the goal. So from this time, I was once a week going from Lille to Paris with the train, thanks to the TGV in France we have, is very convenient. It was just 1 hour. So I every week I would go back and forth and go on with my normal schooling. So this Michel was my teacher there, but he had so much to do during this year. So quite sometimes I went and he was not there. So for me it was a lot of investment. I don't speak about money, but time and effort to go to Paris. I was extremely happy with when he was there. I was really fantastic, but I was extremely disappointed when he was not there. And I couldn't go on like this because, yeah, I would have preferred. Although with Michel was fantastic, I would need someone every week. And I was still young at the time, so really not yet in complete autonomy. I don't know if you understand autonomy. And so I was advised, and maybe by Michel himself, that Florent Hérault, one of his previous students, had a fantastic class in Rueil-Malmaison, so it's not too far from Paris. And so I applied for this class, and I also was lucky to get in. And Florent was amazing and very. He taught me a lot. He was absolutely in Michel's way of playing and teaching, and it was was a lot of work at the beginning of the study with him, but he went on very well. And after 6 months, I applied for the Conservatoire in Paris, and I got in. So it was very intense, but very short, but very intense work together with Florent, and we are still in very good contact, very close contact. And then I entered the Conservatoire in Paris, and that was 2001. We were in the class of Michel Arignon, and Florent was his assistant at the time, Florent Hérault. And that was just for 1 year, because then Florent left, and Arnaud Leroy was the new assistant. And we also had very good relationship. Arnaud Leroy being also a guy from the north of France. So that's quite a journey. But that's the list of my teachers. And I forget one was also very, very important. When I was still in Lille, at some point I didn't got my final exam. Also, Philippe Cuper was in the jury, and against all expectations, because so far everything went so fast and so good, I didn't get my diploma at the end of the year, and it was really a shock for me. But he told me this and this is not good. You have to do something about it, otherwise you can't go further. And so today I put a stop on it. It was really really difficult. And by the time my father was a house doctor, and his office was at home, in some part of the home, he was in touch with quite a few musicians of the Orchestre National de Lille. And someday one of them came to see my father because he was sick or needed to see my father. And there was a time when I was practicing at home. And the guy happened to be also a solo clarinetist, the other solo clarinetist of the Orchestre National de Lille. It was Christian Gossard. And Christian asked my father, but I hear clarinet, is there someone who plays clarinet here? And my father said, yes, my son is playing clarinet. And that's how we met. And when this problem happened, I went to Christian, and Christian helped me so much, and taught me the right way to blow again into the clarinet and to go over the problem that I had. And in few weeks, it was solved. It was really amazing. At the beginning, I say, I have to relearn everything from the start. I can't blow anymore. And this instrument, it's so difficult. And after 2 weeks, I think everything was solved, and we went on. So, and I kept on seeing Christian for 1 or 2 years or so on the side of all the rest. So I owe Christian a lot, and we are still also very good friends and in close contact. Yeah, that's the good thing about all my teachers. I'm still in very good contact, and maybe from some of them not so often, and some more often than others. But we are still in touch. I consider we have a very special relationship. Yeah, at least I have a very special relationship with them.
How did you prepare for competitions?
First competition I played was nothing less than IAD in 2003. And I was still young at the Conservatoire in Paris, not even 22 when I prepared. So I was still 21. It was my second year in the Conservatoire. And I already had the luxury. I had a job from that time because I was already in the Garde Républicaine for a year. So I was financially secured and everything. So I didn't have to think about to earn my life, to be able to eat and something. So this was off my shoulders, which is already a luxury. So I could really concentrate on the program. I had no idea what to expect, to be honest. I was young, non-experienced. I had no idea of the outside world outside of Paris. And I just wanted at the time of my life to make a point and to see where I was in my progression. And I liked the program very much. It was a lot, but I've at the time played already quite a lot of the program. Only some solo pieces, contemporary pieces, I had to prepare really on purpose because this was never my cup of tea. So, but you still have to play at least one and choose from the list to attend the competition. So I chose one of them was Berlioz Sequenza, and I really dug into it. And I practice in a very innocent way, like not expecting anything, because this is the kind of competition, it's too high. In my opinion, it's too high, so it's for really special people. I was just go and try and see where I am in my progression. But I had no expectation of winning a prize for sure, and even going into, I would be happy if I go through 1 or 2 rounds, but that was it. So I really had no expectations. Just I worked in a very honest way and a very naive way. My best, like I always did actually, that's going only for more than the best what I could. So always go beyond what I can do, and try to be musically convincing and true to the music. And so that's how I prepared. And then when I went into the next competition, that was 2 years later in Carl Nielsen. So I had just won the IRD competition with a grand prize and so some subsidiary prize, which also meant a lot to me because the public's prize for me was the most important actually, and the prize from the orchestra for the best performance in the semi-final round. So everything that came from the public and from the inside the music I got, I was so happy with it. So great. But then you apply to the next competition with Carl Nielsen, which is not less important for us clarinetists. But then you have a label on the forehead, you know, and like you are the last winner of the major competition. So that was a bit more challenging, I have to say, because you can't be naive anymore. You know what it is. You know that you've been through and the last competition, that you got the prize. Yeah, so naivety was really far away already. So I had a lot of pressure on my shoulders because I had to prove that it was not just a coincidence. Although I don't think it can be coincidence when you go through all these rounds, and it's almost impossible. I'm now at the jury, now as we speak, as the jury of Carl Nielsen competition, and I see from the other side, it's no coincidence. You can have one bad day, or one good day, of course, but 3 or 4 in a row, it's not possible. So, yeah, so it was much more pressure on my shoulders, but. And when I arrived there, so I tried to prepare thoroughly. I even came back to my parents' house just to be able to focus on it. And then I would have all the comfort of my parents, very warm, and the family, which means a lot to me. And I wouldn't have to think about anything like cooking, for example. I could really focus on what I had to do. And when I arrived here in Odense before the first round, I didn't feel so comfortable, and probably because pressure was really high. That's how I felt actually. But then I just before playing for the first round, I got to meet the pianist with whom I would play a few minutes later for the official competition. And we start rehearsing, and from this very moment I felt so relieved because we got along well, we made music, and I forgot about all the stress, and I was there, and finally I was relieved from everything, from every tension. So she put me in a very good mood, a very good mindset for entering the competition, and from that moment it went also all the way through, and very happy.